Here.
Councilor Siomo. Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Jackson. Councilor LaMattina. Councilor Linehan.
Here.
Councilor McCarthy. Councilor Murphy. Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Presley. Councilor Wu. Councilor Yancey. And Councilor Zachem. Mr. President, we have unanimous.
I've been informed by the clerk that a quorum is present. I would ask at this time for all councilors and guests to please rise. And I invite Councilor Murphy to the podium to introduce today's clergy. After the invocation is delivered, I would ask that all members and guests to remain standing as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilor Murphy. Councilor Murphy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, everyone. I have the distinct honor today to introduce a longtime friend of mine, Father Richard Fitzgerald, who is the pastor of St. Columbkille's Parish in Brighton. And the Fitzgeralds, his younger brother, I shouldn't say that, but his older brother, never argue with the clergy, is John Fitzgerald. And many of us know him from Boston Water and Sewer Commission and other public accomplishments. But Father Fitzy, as he's known to his parishioners, is a beloved figure out in Councilor Siomo's district. He was ordained to the priesthood in 1987, is an alumnus of Blessed Pope John the 23rd National Seminary in Weston, has served 11 years as pastor of St. Paul Parish in Wellesley, and prior to that, he served for many years as the director of clergy personnel for the Archdiocese. Please join me in welcoming Father Richard Fitzy Fitzgerald to the City Council.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Also, just with me is Tom Olson, who is going to be in his last year of studies for the priesthood at Blessed John the 23rd Seminary in Weston also, so we're bringing it along as a little training program. Let us pray. Dear God, we stand before you conscious of our weakness, but aware that we gather in your name. Enlighten the hearts of all in this council chamber. Give us light and strength to know your will. Guide us by your wisdom and support us by your power. You desire justice for all. Enable this council to uphold the rights of others, and let it be faithful to all that is true. Do not let it be misled by ignorance or corrupted by fear or favor. Let the light of your divine wisdom direct the deliberations of this council and shine forth in all its proceedings. May the decisions of this council preserve peace, promote happiness, and continue to bring us the blessings of liberty and equality. May these decisions be pleasing to you and earn the reward promised to good and faithful servants, for you live and reign one God, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Father Fitzgerald, for your inspiring and pertinent message. At this time, Councilor Murphy will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Councilor Murphy will escort Father Fitzgerald and Father Tom Olson from the dais. And then we'd ask Councilor Murphy to please return so that he could participate and introduce our first presentation here today. Councilor Murphy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today we are recognizing the Boston Ballet Company for their commitment to arts and culture in the city of Boston, as well as congratulating them on the conclusion of their 50th season, 5-0. And I'd like to invite Max Hodges, the executive director, and Nico Nessinen, the artistic director, as well as other staff, if they'd like to come up to the podium. And if you don't mind, bear with me. I'm going to read the resolution and present it to them. And I just want to say before I read the resolution that we all talk about Boston being a world-class city, and it is because of the arts and culture that helped make it that way. And the Boston Ballet Company is one of those institutions that define the very fabric of our city. And it's an honor for me and for all of us to welcome them on the 50th anniversary of the Boston Ballet. Whereas E. Virginia Williams founded the Boston Ballet in 1963, creating the first professional repertory ballet company in New England and setting the stage for one of the top ballet companies in the world. And whereas the Boston Ballet is the fourth largest ballet company in the United States and employs almost 500 full and part-time staff, including 56 orchestra members and 67 dancers. And whereas the three pillars of Boston Ballet's work include stage, studio, and community. And whereas the stage pillar includes 6 productions a year at the Boston Opera House and 2 at Boston Ballet's Clarendon Street location. The studio pillar includes the Boston Ballet School, which grants up to $700,000 in scholarships among 5,000 students across 3 locations, making it the largest ballet school in North America. The community pillar of Boston Ballet includes serving up to 5,000 youth per year through the Department of Education and community initiatives such as City Dance, Adaptive Dance, Taking Steps, and Boys in Motion. And whereas an estimated 225,000 audience members from around the world experience Boston Ballet productions during the course of its 50th season, which will conclude in September of this year, therefore be it resolved that the members of the Boston City Council in meeting assembled do hereby extend their gratitude to the Boston Ballet for its outstanding contributions to the vibrant education, artistic, and cultural community in the city of Boston. And be it further resolved that the members of the Boston City Council in meeting assembled do hereby congratulate the Boston Ballet on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of its establishment. This resolution be duly signed by our President, Bill Linehan, and attested to and a copy thereof transmitted by the Clerk of the City of Boston, Maureen Feeney, and proudly offered on behalf of all of us by myself, City Councilor at Large, Steve Murphy. Thank you.
We have a little video to share with you as well, but I'll begin. Thank you very, very much. I'm delighted to have recently rejoined the Boston community as the new executive director of the Boston Ballet, and we appreciate the City of Boston's generosity in recognizing the ballet's contributions to the community at large. We recognize the need to connect our community to dance in ways that continue to make ballet meaningful and relevant for all. Boston Ballet has a legacy of commitment to community impact here in the city of Boston. Our organization was launched as a school 50 years ago and produced a professional company 10 years later. The ballet contributed to the revitalization and transformation of the South End neighborhood with the renovation of our facility at 19 Clarendon, and our commitment has expanded over the years. In our 50th anniversary year, more than 60 Boston Public Schools partnered with the ballet to provide more than 3,000 third-grade children with an opportunity to participate in city dance workshops free of charge. Middle school boys and girls in the South End, Roxbury, Dorchester, Roslindale, and a range of other neighborhoods participated in Boys in Motion and Taking Steps. 100 children and young adults with Down syndrome and autism participate in the ballet's adaptive dance program. And our annual signature event in the Dorchester community, Boston Ballet at the Strand Theater, is designed to foster greater connections in the city of Boston and encourage our audience to rethink ballet. Our adaptive dance and our public school students share the same stage as our professional company. In the past 5 years, 4,000 students have been served through a free morning performance exclusively for Boston Public School students in the 5th grade, and the evening performance has reached over 3,000 members of the community. The ballet is very proud of more than 20 community partnerships and collaborations across the city, including those with Boston Public Libraries, Mass Mentoring Partnership, Hydesgrove Task Force, Big Sister Association of Greater Boston, Ellis Memorial, Press Pass TV, and the Urbano Project. Our connections to communities across the city are anchored by a commitment to excellence on stage. And with that, I'm very pleased to introduce our artistic director, Mikko Niisinen.
Thank you. As you will see in a little bit, we will show you a video presentation about the organization. Boston Ballet is a truly unique organization in our field. We are here to share the love of dance with everyone. As one of the major ballet companies in the world, we are one of the top international companies with a very international rank of professional dancers. Annually, we see about 1,200 dancers for around 5 positions in the company. It's very difficult to get into the company. Company is more than 50% American. The rest represent 19 different nationalities. We are very much trying to align Boston Ballet to be the ballet company of the future, or the dance organization of the future. Company performs 3-pronged repertoire. We do the big classical ballets, your Swan Lakes and Sleeping Beauty, heavy accent on the neoclassical ballet, and serious commitment to contemporary dance. This allows us to have 3 doors and be inclusive versus exclusive. Everybody is welcome. And as has already said, there's a huge emphasis on a company on stage. We also have one of the largest ballet schools in the world. Our outreach programs are really unparalleled in our industry and very much in the city of Boston. As I'm starting my 13th season with the organization, I have had incredible time here in Boston, and I am so proud as we concluded our 50th season to turn the page and start a whole new era for the Boston Ballet. Thank you.
think it was Edmund Burke that once said, men don't need so much to be informed as to be reminded. And I think that little video reminds us all that the Boston Ballet is a cultural treasure here in Boston, and one that's often overlooked by a sports-crazy city. You know, it takes both sides to make a world-class city, and we're glad we have institutions like this one. I could ask all my colleagues to come up and take a picture with the Boston Ballet folks. I'd appreciate it. Thanks.
Great job. I think that video will improve our ratings on council television. Yeah, hold the resolution up. Are you in there?
Well, I'm back here, but I'm part of that resolution.
All right. Paparazzi, go to work. They all count.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'd like to thank Councilor Murphy for this presentation. It's a unique opportunity to recognize one of the great institutions, a neighborhood institution in the South End that has international acclaim. And I want to thank you again, Councilor Murphy, and the staff, the directors of the Boston Ballet for being here with us today. At this time, I'd like to ask Councilor Baker if he would come to the podium. He has a special presentation he'd like to make today.
Thank you, everybody. Everybody's familiar with personal bucket list. Today is filling a bucket list requirement for my Uncle Bob, who I lost last year to cancer. Bob I had the privilege of spending time with him and his family, my cousin Eddie and his son Nolan here. And Nolan's a pretty special guy. He knows all about the presidents, and you know how we tend to get maybe beat up in the press, and sometimes they don't respect what we do, and that comes down from the presidents. You know, the respect maybe isn't there sometimes, but to come across a young kid that can tell you any president, where they were born, who their vice president was, what they may be known for. What do you think of Nixon? No, he wasn't really the best. Sorry to put you out there. But anyways, I appreciate your indulgence with me today. A quick story about Nolan. When I was spending time with them up in New Hampshire a couple years ago, I was walking with Ed and Nolan, and I was with my son, and Ed was talking to Nolan, saying, you know, Nolan, all the kids in your class, they don't necessarily want to hear about the presidents all day long, every day. They don't really care. They want to talk about sports, and this to get to your point, they want to talk about sports and whatever else. So you got to think of something else to talk about. 20 minutes later, Nolan comes back, and he says, Dad, I know what I can talk about. The vice presidents. So I don't know how that went over in his class. I'm going to read this resolution to Nolan. Be it resolved that the City of Boston City Council extends its congratulations to Nolan Baker in recognition of the Nolan Baker Day for your intimate knowledge and interest in the United States President, signed by Billy Linehan and also myself and the city clerk. I'd like to ask Nolan, do you want to say anything? Do you want to address the crowd? Come right up here.
I sort of always had love for presidents. I always and I knew a lot about them since kindergarten. I can name all 44 since kindergarten too.
Who's your favorite president?
My favorite president was probably Lincoln for freeing the slave.
Who was his vice president?
Lincoln's vice president, that was Johnson.
Right.
He became president after Lincoln got shot.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Nolan. Kim, do you want to come down and take a picture? If I can ask... Can I ask everybody to come up and take a picture with us? Good job, buddy.
Anybody got any president questions? Do you dare? Okay, who was the third president?
The third president, Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson, all right.
That was an easy one.
Speaking of past presidents.
Thank you.
All right.
Good job, buddy.
Nolan Baker Day. A president. Good.
I want to shake your hand, because you could be the next president in a few more years.
Well, I'm sure that this sort of quality entertainment that introduces our business here today will continue to get the millions of viewers that we maintain in our viewership every year. So, at this time, approval of the minutes. If there are no corrections to be made, the minutes of last week's meeting will stand approved. Seeing and hearing no objections, the minutes are so approved. Communications from His Honor the Mayor, Madam Clerk.
Docket number 1317, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend a grant of $797,266 from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for the purpose of supporting the 2014/FY15 Summer Jobs at Risk Youth program called YouthWorks.
Docket 1317 will be assigned to the Committee on Economic Development, Planning, and Labor.
Docket number 1318, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend a donation to help support CanCheer 2014 in an amount not to exceed $125,000 to provide access to fresh food in the city, such as the Boston Bounty Buck Program, which enables Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program known as SNAP beneficiaries to double their buying power at the Boston Farmers Market and greatly increases access to fresh, healthy food.
Docket 1318 will be assigned to the Committee on Healthy Women, Families, and Communities.
Docket number 1319, message and order authorizing the Boston Police Department to accept and expend a donation of lumber in an amount not to exceed $10,000 in value for use by the Boston Police Department's Special Operations Division K-9 unit to update and replace current agility obstacles, as well as to build new obstacles used for training department canines.
On docket 1319, Councilor Murphy, you have the floor. Councilor Murphy moves suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1319. All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1319 has passed.
Docket number 1320, message and order authorizing the Office of Emergency Management to accept a donation of a 2006 Ford Crown Victoria for use by the Office of Emergency Management, known as OEM, staff to attend and host Homeland Security meetings within the Metro Boston region.
Councilor Murphy moves suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1320. All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1320 has passed. Petitions, memorials, and remonstrances, Madam Clerk.
Docket number 1321, petition of Charles River Transportation Management Association for a license to operate motor vehicles for the carriage of passengers for hire over certain streets in the city of Boston.
Docket 1321 will be assigned to the Committee on City, Neighborhood Services, and Veterans Affairs. Reports of public offices.
Should I read
Yeah, Madam Clerk,
to
read docket 1322.
to 1328?
28.
Thank you. Docket number 1322, notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of Veronica Turner as Commissioner to the Boston Employment Commission for a term expiring July 2016. Docket number 1323, notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of Pam Edinger as Commissioner to the Boston Employment Commission for a term expiring July 2016. Docket number 1324, notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of Jorge Martinez as Commissioner to the Boston Employment Commission for a term expiring July 2016. Docket number 1325, notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of Charles Cofield as a Commissioner to the Boston Employment Commission for a term expiring July 2016. Docket number 1326, notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of James Williamson as interim budget director. Docket number 1327, notice is received from the mayor of the appointment of Joshua Franklin Hodge as chief information officer. And docket number 1328, notice was received from the mayor, from the city clerk, in accordance with Chapter 6 of the ordinances of 1979, regarding actions taken by the mayor on papers acted upon by the city council at its July 9th, 2014 meeting.
Docket 1322 through 1328 will be placed on file. Report, I'm sorry, Madam Clerk. Is it report? You have two more?
Yes. Docket number 1329, communication was received from the city clerk for the filing by the Boston Redevelopment Authority of the agreement between the City of Boston and Madison Betolf Limited Partnership pursuant to Chapter 121A, Section 6A of the Massachusetts General Laws. And docket number 1330, communication was received from Sally D. Glora, City Auditor, transmitting the fiscal year 2015 payroll allotment schedules for all departments.
1329 and 1330 will be placed on file. Reports, I'm sorry. Councilor Yancey.
I just ask that docket number 1330 be referred to Post Audit and Oversight Committee.
What number was that?
Docket number 1330.
Just recess 1 second. Yeah, please. We're back in session. Councilor Yancey, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This item normally would be placed on file, but I'm asking that we move for reconsideration so it can be referred to the appropriate committee.
Are there any objections? Second. The matter 1313 will be placed in the Committee on Post Audit. 1330, right?
Yep.
Yep. Thank you. Madam Clerk, please read reports of committees.
Docket number 1312, Committee on Government Operations, to which was referred on July 30th, 2014, docket number 1312. Message and ordinance to amend the City of Boston Code Ordinances 24-8.2, the Living Wage Advisory Committee submits a report recommending the order ought to pass.
The Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee on Government Operations, Councilor Flaherty.
Thank you, Mr. President. We held a hearing to discuss this matter on August the 13th. The Mayor's Chief of Policy, Joyce Lenahan, explained the need to update the Living Wage Advisory Board because the current ordinance involves organizations that are no longer in existence. This ordinance would expand the board's membership to include members of the community-based organizations, local businesses, and labor unions. The committee will meet monthly and ensure that contractors are in compliance with the living wage policy. Therefore, at this time, I'm recommending passage of docket 1312.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to commend Councilor Flaherty for his speedy turnaround on this and acknowledge that we're joined by Rich Rogers, who is the head of the Greater Boston Labor Council now, but back in 1997 was one of the authors of the first in the Commonwealth Living Wage Ordinance, which we adopted here. I was proud to sit at the table with Rich Rogers and then Councilor Mickey Roach, and he was the chair of the Committee on Government Operations at the time. And we were really ahead of the curve, as we usually are, the Boston City Council. I think Councilor Yancey and I are the only two members that are still here from that 97 time. And I just recommend that we move swiftly on this because, as Chairman Flaherty said, much of the mechanism is outdated from the original legislation, and that's why we're going to correct it here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Councilor Yancey, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, like to commend the Chair of Government and Operations Committee and urge swift action on our part. I think it's important for Boston to continue its leadership role with regards to providing a city that's friendly to business, yes, but also very strong in terms of supporting the working people of the city. I was proud to vote for this back in 1997. I hope I didn't date myself by reminding people I was here at that time. But I believe that Boston has a very strong tradition of supporting working people, and even when it's not popular. So I urge swift passage at this time. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Yancey. Councilor Flaherty moves acceptance of the committee report and passage of docket 1312. All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1312 has been passed. Madam Clerk.
Docket number 1310, the Committee on Government Operations, to which was referred on July 30th, 2014, docket number 1310, an ordinance prohibiting the selling, leasing, or reserving of public ways in the City of Boston, submits a report recommending the order ought to pass.
The Chair recognizes the Chair on the Committee of Government Operations, Councilor Flaherty.
Thank you, Mr. President. We held a hearing on August 13th. We heard from Boston Transportation Commissioner Jim Gahuli, Superintendent Bernie O'Rourke, Chris Osgood from the Office of New Urban Mechanics, as well as the CEO of Haystack, Eric Meyer. We discussed the many concerns with allowing Haystack Parking app to operate here in the city of Boston. They're currently up and running in Baltimore. As you know, the city has sole authority to regulate parking on city-owned streets, and this app potentially threatens that authority. The BPD discussed public safety concerns and the possibility of disputes that may arise with respect to the uses of this app and people competing for parking spaces. And while we encourage technology and innovation, which was pointed out by our good colleague Matt O'Malley, we feel that, or at least I feel as chair, that the passage of docket 1310 is more than appropriate to make sure that the city has control over our spaces. And with that, I want to defer it to the lead sponsor, our colleague, City Councilor Frank Baker, for his thoughts and comments. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Baker, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I'd like to thank the Chair of Government Operations for having an expedited hearing. A lot was spoken about how the person that was here from Haystack, and this isn't necessarily an anti-Haystack or anti-technology. A lot was said about how we didn't understand what the app was. My understanding was that they were trying to buy and sell city property, which isn't theirs to buy and sell. So with that being said, I'm someone that would rather have a hammer or a screw gun in my hand. I don't want an iPhone. I don't want necessarily a computer. I don't necessarily understand all the apps, but I understand what this one was trying to do, and I think that we should vote to ban this particular app because it's dealing with our property. So to get away from possibly down the line where people are trying to buy and sell our parks, our benches, anything of the like, I think this is us being on the front end of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Baker. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. President. As someone who not only encourages the innovation technology, I'm also a client. I'm someone who uses Uber, who uses Lyft, who uses Airbnb, which I know we'll discuss later today. And the difference between these new innovative ways of growing the economy and new innovation and something like this is it's private property among individuals as opposed to this, which is a private person benefiting from a public space. So I want to commend the maker and my dear friend from District 3, Councilor Baker, for his leadership on this. I will be voting in favor or in support of this ordinance. I think it's smart. An idea that I brought up to the person who has thought of this is there are ways we can look at our private parking garages, for example, where there are different times of day or times of year or events which could necessitate need or want or desire openings. So if we're looking at the private industry and private areas, that's one thing. This is public. I think it sets a dangerous precedent. That's why I'll be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Jackson.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This one is a difficult one for me because I think the question is whether or not there's a sale of information or property. And I think the council actually risks thwarting technology and the innovative environment that we have here. And so I'm actually really torn about the prospect of this. I know that in the past we've actually passed ordinances that have had blowback towards us, and I guess my question is: are we cutting a potential, a potential opportunity and taking that off the table relative to this haystack, but also other components? And sadly, the other question would be: is there some potential partnership that a company such as this could have relative to revenue sharing with the city that could actually drive revenue? So I think there is a question in that regard. So I'm very hesitant relative to overstepping our bounds and actually thwarting the environment in which we've created here in the city of Boston that really looks. We have Mobile Mondays here where hundreds of people in the city get together. We have Biotech Tuesdays in the city where hundreds of people get together relative to innovation and entrepreneurship. And I guess I question whether or not we're stepping on the toes or putting an additional impediment for folks who are in that space. Thank you very much. And I also would, with that said, also like to acknowledge the author for bringing this important issue to the table so we could have a robust conversation on it.
Thank you, Councilor Jackson. Just for clarification, your question is rhetorical. You're not asking anybody a specific question.
Yeah, it's rhetorical. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Flaherty moves acceptance of the committee report and passage of docket 1310. All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1310 has been passed. Madam Clerk, could you please read dockets 1233 and 1236 through 1236?
Thank you, Mr. President. Docket number 1233, the Committee on Economic Development and Planning, to which was referred on July 30th, 2014, docket number 1233. Message and order approving the receipt of a preservation restriction agreement on the Hurd House, 65 to 71 Main Street, Charlestown. Submits a report recommending the order ought to pass. Docket number 1234, the Committee on Economic Development and Planning, to which was referred on July 30th, 2014, docket number 1234, message and order approving the receipt of a preservation restriction agreement on the Spooner Lambert House at 64 Bartlett Street, Roxbury, submits a report recommending the order ought to pass. Docket number 1235, the Committee on Economic Development and Planning, to which was referred on July 30th, 2014, docket number 1235, message and order approving the receipt of a preservation restriction agreement on the Cushing Endicott House at 163 to 165 Marlborough Street, Boston, submits a report recommending the order ought to pass. And docket number 1236, the Committee on Economic Development and Planning, to which was referred on July 30th, 2014, docket number 1236, message and order approving the receipt of a preservation restriction agreement on the Cedar Street Marble Row House buildings at 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 46, and 46A Cedar Street, Roxbury, submits a report recommending the order ought to pass.
Councilor LaMartina, you have the floors on dockets 1233 through 1236.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last week on Wednesday, August 13, we held a hearing in regards to docket number 1233, 1234, 1235, and 1236. At the hearing, we had Ellen Linsky, Executive Director of the Boston Lands Mark Commission, and Kathy Katalis from the Historic Boston Corporation. These homes are historic homes in Boston. It has to pass by the city council, and then it goes to Secretary of State's office, and then it's registered at the Secretary of State office. The purpose was really to preserve these 4 homes, and any changes would have to go through the Landmarks Commission. So I urge passage of these 4 documents and to preserve the historic value of these homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lamartina. Councilor Lamartina moves acceptance of the committee report and passage of docket 1233. All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1233 has been passed. Councilor Lamartina moves acceptance of the committee report and passage of docket 1234. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1234 has been passed. Councilor Lamartina moves acceptance of the committee report and passage of docket 1235. All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1235 has passed. And Councilor Lamartina moves acceptance of 1236. And all in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1236 has passed. Madam Clerk.
Docket number 1102. The Committee on City and Neighborhood Service and Veterans Affairs, to which was referred on June 25, 2014, docket number 1102. Petition of Group Zoom, Inc. for a license to operate motor vehicles for the carriage of passengers for hire over certain streets in Boston. Submits a report recommending the order to pass.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee on City, Neighborhood Services and Veterans Affairs, Councilor McCarthy, on docket 1102.
1102 Group Zoom, Inc., also known as Bridge, for a license to operate motor vehicles for the carriage of passengers for hire over certain streets in Boston. The Committee of Neighborhood Services, we met on August 11th. The petitioner attended the hearing, submitted all the required documentation, made a presentation explaining the proposed transportation service. Petition has been reviewed by the appropriate officials, Boston Transportation Department, as well as the Boston Police Department, to consider the particulars of the petition, including traffic engineering and safety concerns. The representatives of the Boston Police Department, as well as BTD, stated the specific routes and requested under the petition that they meet their requirements. The committee recommends that this petition ought to pass, with the proviso that all conditions of the Boston Police and Boston Transportation Departments are met.
Thank you, Councilor McCarthy. Councilor McCarthy moves acceptance of the committee report and passage of docket 1102. All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1102 has been passed. Madam Clerk, matters recently heard for possible action.
Docket number 1255, order approving a petition for a special law regarding appointment of special police officers in the city of Boston.
Councilor Flaherty? Okay. That matter will remain in committee. 1255 will remain in the Committee on Government Operations. Madam Clerk?
Docket number 1251, ordinance amending CBC 2-8.3, City Council personnel salaries.
Councilor Flaherty, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the hearing yesterday, we heard from City Council Staff Director Daisy De La Rosa, along with City Council Murphy, who's chairing the Rules and Administration Committee. Both shared their respective perspectives on the role of central staff, along with the various positions that fall under the various categories. There were some concerns raised by colleagues about the role of central staff and how it should function in relation to the council, along with a recommendation or request that more emphasis be put on the budget side of the House, along with the hiring process for staffers. At this time, I'm recommending passage of docket 1251 in a new draft, but we'll defer to Council President Linehan for additional comments as lead sponsor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. We had a hearing yesterday on this item, which was in the Committee on Rules and Administration, is on the green sheets as docket 0864. But in order to change the salaries and classifications, it has to be done by ordinance. So a very rare occurrence, one chair of a committee came out and testified on behalf of their committee, referring the topic to government operations yesterday. And while I thought it was an internal matter and it was going to be something that was not contentious, we had a spirited hearing yesterday. And it only goes to show that the City Council works. And it works transparently and accountability-wise, because we were here debating an internal matter in the full chamber with full public access. And what we're voting on today, however, is an amended version based on comments we heard yesterday from people in this chamber of the ordinance itself. There were job descriptions that came out of the Committee on Rules that are not part of this ordinance, that would remain as docket number 0864 in the Committee on Rules for further work. Today, right now, what we're voting on is simply the new designations in ordinance form. And I want to commend the President. You know, we all work here as councilors, and every January somebody gets elected as president, and I'm one of the people who served. And you begin to realize as the president that not only are you a counselor, you are the head of the legislative department, and you have a $5 million budget, and you have approximately 78 to 80 staffers, most of whom work for other counselors, but there is that central staff component. And that all falls under the purview of the head of department, who is the president, and taking direction in the Rules Committee from the President, and hopefully we'll move forward with the job descriptions meeting the test of time and the test of all members. But I recommend supporting the Chair of Government Operations today and moving forward with the ordinance. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilor Linehan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on the matter. And I want to thank all of my colleagues and all the staff, the central staff here at the Boston City Council. This has been a comprehensive effort that culminates in an ordinance that needs to be approved by you all, signed by the mayor, before we could implement any of these proposed changes. And clearly there are new titles that are much more indicative of the job and the responsibilities and the duties of each of our staff. And along them is a salary range that is commensurate with those particular titles and the type of work that they have. There's been dialogue throughout the 6 months, and even including in yesterday's hearing, that included that we should have some specific person who supports the budget director, and someone who would have some budget analysis experience, which we've included in the title of a senior legislative assistant. So as we move forward, I appreciate everything you've all done. I think this will only enhance the body, will allow the central staff to deliver better service to all of you, and therefore you all to the public of the city of Boston. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilor Yancey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I also want to thank the work of our president and the chair of the Rules Committee, and I want to acknowledge some of the changes made as a result of the discussion we had during a very rare public hearing where the councilors and the staff director explored this issue. Mr. President, I rise because even with the change, I still have some reservations. The City Council should be a co-equal partner in government. Our staff should reflect the awesome responsibility we have, particularly around the budget, as well as other legislative issues. The operating budget for fiscal year 2015 is in excess of $2.7 billion. I don't believe the responsibility for analyzing that budget and the complexities, particularly when you add the school department, and you add to that the capital budget, and you add to that the billions of dollars of additional funding from federal and state levels, that it's fair to place that responsibility only on the director of the budget, and even the second person, as we implemented back in 2001, when we fought so hard to add legal counsel to the city council staff and assistant budget director. Prior to that time, it was the primary responsibility of the budget director to deal with the budget, with great assistance from other members of the central staff. So even with this proposed change, Mr. President, I would ask that we delay the vote maybe for one more meeting so we can hammer out this issue, because if passed as presented, we're actually eliminating positions for central staff, at least one or two. And I believe that we are unnecessarily understaffed in terms of having individuals in the central staff with very specific backgrounds in terms of dealing with our budget in particular. So with all due respect, I would ask that we not approve this today. I'm moving closer to accepting this, but I think with a little more massaging, we should be ready. I don't think we should be eliminating staff positions either. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Councilor Yancey. Councilor Jackson.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'd like to thank you for your work on this. I also would like to thank Councilor Murphy for the work that he began last year in pulling things together relative to efficacy in the central staff. I also want to note, I want to thank you for bringing the Boston Ballet. I ironically am actually on the board of the Boston Ballet since I could not be in the company. They actually allowed for me to have a spot on the board. I too would ask that we spend a little bit more time on this really important central function relative to how our central staff works. We do a great deal of heavy lifting. I want to acknowledge Mark Siomo, who I probably spent more time with him than he spent with his family over the course of June and July, hearing after hearing after hearing. And I think we just really need to dig down and make sure that we have the proper formation relative to how we support, analyze, and look at accountability for a $2.7 billion budget, a school budget that is in excess of $1.2 billion, and how all of these folks can effectively support every single office in this room. I think it's a really critical function. I think that we should really take a measured and thoughtful approach and take our time and get to a place where we actually are at a good place. It sounds as if many are at a good place. I think this should be, and we can get to a place where we are all on the same page relative to this matter. So I would also ask that we spend a little bit more time in committee, have a conversation, and move this forward with as close to a unanimous vote as possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Jackson. Councilor Siomo.
Thank you. Let me first commend you, Mr. President, for restructuring the staff to better meet the needs of the entire body. The budget process was brought up. So I feel the way it was restructured was actually beneficial. We got more staff involved with the budget process, spreading out the responsibilities. The budget process is a very intensive, finite time. And to just rely on the budget director and the assistant budget director, I think the fact that we restructured the way we staffed those hearings was actually beneficial to me, my staff, and my office. So I would urge that the body do consider passing this today. I think it's a good move, and it was already kind of tested already in the budget process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Siomo. At this time, Councilor Flaherty moves acceptance of the committee report and passage of docket 1251 in a new draft. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1251 has been passed in a new draft. Madam Clerk?
Docket number 1158, message in order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend funds totaling to $262,500 from the Barr Foundation Grant number 5341 to the City of Boston's Office of New Bostonians to support the Immigration, Integration, and Empowerment Initiative.
The Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee on Ways and Means, Councilor Siomo, on docket 1158.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Ways and Means Committee held a hearing yesterday. The new director from the Office of New Bostonians, Alejandra Sanguillen, testified. This grant would allow for the hiring of a fellow whose responsibilities would be to facilitate a citywide visioning process for immigrant integration and empowerment and develop a detailed action plan for all city departments with objectives for each phase of work, timelines, and milestones. In addition to that, it would also create a best practices guide that documents successful practices of businesses that employ immigrants and publicly recognized companies that implement these best practices through media outlets. This is a grant. It's a 3-year grant, and the Barr Foundation has never funded this type of initiative before. I believe it's an exciting initiative for the city to undertake and will help empower underserved communities. So I urge passage.
Councilor Siomo moves acceptance of the committee report and passage of docket 1158. All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1158 has been passed. Madam Clerk? Docket 0759, please.
Docket 0759, ordinance amending the CBC Chapter 10, Section 10.4, University Accountability.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee of Government Operations, Councilor Flaherty, on docket 0759.
Thank you, Mr. President. This matter was co-sponsored by Councilor Zakim and Councilor Siomo. Hearing was held yesterday, very informative. It was attended by Devin Quirk, the Director of Operations for D&D, along with a number of government and community liaisons from various colleges and universities in Boston.
Councilor Flaherty, could you move your microphone?
Along with community activists from various neighborhoods who are directly impacted by student life of colleges and universities. So there were several concerns were addressed, and quite frankly, this would provide our college universities to submit to our city clerk within a date certain, I believe it was November the 15th, requesting the names and addresses and zip codes of students that are both living on and off campus. So it hopefully will go a long way. I'll defer at this point to both the lead sponsors, but be recommending passage of this docket 0759 in a new draft. And at this point, we'll turn it over to our colleague, City Councilor Josh Zakim.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Zakim.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Councilor Flaherty, for chairing an informative hearing and moving this bill forward. I'd also like to thank Councilor Siomo and his staff for the work we've done together on this issue. I think Councilor Siomo said several times during the hearing that our two districts probably bear the brunt of the student population in the city of Boston, and making sure the city knows where and in what type of housing many of these students are living and how that impacts our neighborhoods and city services is important, and was the genesis for the original University Accountability Act. The amendments proposed in this ordinance reflect the agreements Mayor Walsh and his administration have reached with many of the colleges and universities who are all supportive of this ordinance today. It will specifically include the addresses without identifying data for the students of where they're living, the type of housing they're in, and will also include part-time students and full-time students to make sure we have an accurate picture for DND, for their planning purposes, for ISD, and ensuring that all of our city zoning and occupancy rules are adhered to. So I certainly would ask all my colleagues to vote in the affirmative on this, and I want to again thank Councilor Siomo for all his work on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Zakim. Councilor Siomo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me return the accolades to my good colleague from Beacon Hill, Back Bay, for the work you and your staff did on this. This is another tool that we need, especially in communities like ours, neighborhoods like ours that have such high student populations. Let me also thank Councilor Flaherty and the mayor for asking the universities to provide this information and for the universities for complying voluntarily. This will simply codify that request and make it part of the annual University Accountability Report. During the testimony from Devin Quirk from DND, he revealed that upon receiving a lot of the information, they were able to identify 600 units to be inspected because of the matrix of how many kids actually were reported at certain addresses and how big those units were. So I think this is going to go a long way, again, not as a punitive measure, but as a preventative way for us in the city and inspectional services to get out into these apartments to prevent the tragedies on Linden Street that happen in my district, but to provide safe and habitable housing for all our residents. So I urge my colleagues to join us in passage.
Thank you, Councilor Siomo. Councilor Flaherty moves acceptance of the committee report and passage of docket 0759 in a new draft. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 0759 has been passed in a new draft. Madam Clerk.
Docket number 0362, order for hearing to review the fiscal year 2013 audited financial statements. Would you like me to read 63 also?
Yeah, could you do that also?
And docket number 0363, order for a hearing to review the fiscal year 2014 budget.
The Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee on Post Audit and Oversight, Councilor Yancey, on docket 0362 and 0363.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As you know, beginning earlier this year, we've been conducting a very comprehensive review of the city's operation for fiscal year 2013 and fiscal year 2014. Those hearings are in progress. In fact, tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., we will hear from our newly appointed treasurer to discuss execution of courts. And I invite all of our colleagues to participate in that. But let me just note that for fiscal year 2013, the official surplus was in the range of $8 million. The real surplus, if you include those appropriations that we really did not use that year, including utilization of $40 million from the fund balance, would suggest that the surplus was much higher than what will be actually reported. And the same will be the case for the fiscal year 14 as well, where this body appropriated $40 million out of the fund balance. It looks like that would not be utilized for fiscal year 14 as well. But I also want to note that during the some preliminary figures for 2014 overtime budget, of course, once again, in total was overspent by more than $26 million. The bulk of that, of course, is within public safety services. But I also wanted to note that in a number of other areas, there was significant variation from what was actually approved, including health insurance. It looks like we're going to overspend the health insurance account of more than $10 million. And also, Mr. President, in the area, again, execution of courts, which we will have a hearing on tomorrow morning, it appears that we're overspending execution of courts in excess of $8 million that will be explored tomorrow. The other point I'd like to make, Mr. President, as you know, during the Ways and Means Committee hearings and, of course, the Post Audit and Oversight Committee, we take a very close look at the demographic makeup of the city of Boston. I think we're making progress in terms of ensuring that city government looks like the city of Boston demographically. We're making some progress in that area. And I commend the police commissioner for ensuring that his command staff, at least, is more reflective of the makeup of the city of Boston. But I hasten to add that we still have a long way to go. The vast majority of all city departments do not, in fact, represent the makeup of the city of Boston. We had a hearing with the purchasing division yesterday, a relatively small department, but the pattern of representation in terms of people of color is still, unfortunately, typical of many other departments. Only 31% of that staff is made up of people of color with no representation of Latinos at all. So it's a challenge. We know that in many of these departments we have long-term employees. I'm a long-term employee of this body. But it is a very important issue, and a related issue has to do with the awarding of contracts. This body has been very outspoken in terms of requiring contractors to hire women and people of color. But when we look at the actual contracts that come out of the city of Boston, for example, in the area of contracted services, we spend more than $60 million a year. So I am working very closely with the administration. It's been very cooperative, but we still do not have the data requested in the 17F orders for a more comprehensive breakdown of the actual expenditures, as well as a list of no-bid contracts, and to find out how many of those contracts actually go to businesses located in the city of Boston. The issue of residency is one that's near and dear to the hearts of each of the 13 members of the City Council. We should raise similar questions with regards to contracting as well. So with that said, I encourage all of our colleagues to participate in these hearings. It's one thing to appropriate these funds, and the chair of the Ways and Means Committee, of course, does a very credible job. It's another thing to take a look at the actual performance. And in 90% of the cases, there is, in fact, great variance between what we actually approve and what's actually expended. That's to be expected, I know. But I encourage all of our colleagues to participate in the process. And if you have any particular concerns of any of the particular departments, I'll be happy to work with our colleagues as well as the administration to make sure that there's great fidelity between what this body approves and what's actually expended. Thank you very much, and I ask that both matters remain in the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Yancey, and thank you for the work in the post-audit committee, and thank you for these periodical reports, because they're invaluable to the rest of the body. And just a slight clarification, you're not an employee, you're an elected official.
Well, I consider myself to be an employee of the people of Boston.
There you go.
And I'm on the city's payroll today,
Well,
Mr. President.
you're elected.
Thank you. Yes, I am elected, and I'm well aware of it.
Madam Clerk. That matter will remain in the Committee on Post-Audit and Oversight. Motions, orders, and resolutions.
Docket number 1331, Councilor Murphy and LaMartina offered the following resolution, designating a Memorial Hero Square at the intersection of Maverick Street and Venice Street in East Boston in memory of Technical Sergeant Albert Russo.
Councilor
Oh, I'm sorry.
LaMartina, you are recognized. Your button was not pressed.
Mr. President,
And you now have the floor.
can you please read docket number, out of order, docket number 1338 and 1339?
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, would you please do that?
Thank you, Mr. President. Docket number 1338, Council LaMartina offered the following resolution designating a Memorial Hero Square at the intersection of Morris Street and Marion Street in East Boston in remembrance of Sam Albanese. Docket number 1339, Council LaMartina offered the following resolution designating a Memorial Hero Square at the intersection of Chelsea Street and George R. Visconti Road in East Boston in memory of First Sergeant Anthony Sarge Giannetti. I'm sorry,
Good job.
Giannetti.
We'll teach you Italian.
Councilor LaMartina, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you all for listening to me right now in regards to a request I received from veteran groups and family members of Anthony Sargenetti, Sam Albanese, and Albert Russo. Three longtime East Bostonians, born and raised in East Boston, who were very, very active with Italian-American vets in East Boston. Sargenetti was a classic in East Boston. He served in World War II and the Korean War. He owned a florist, and every year he would come up with these beautiful wreaths for the hero squares, beautiful flowers, which we continue to do today in East Boston. And Sam Albanese, who was born in East Boston, served this country in the USS Marine Corps from 1941 to 1949, was very instrumental in starting to decorate the graves of servicemen many, many, many years ago. And he was doing that till the day he died on July 28, 2008. And Al Russo, another longtime veteran from East Boston, served in World War II, who received the awarded Distinguished Flying Cross by the Commanding General Air Force for his services in the war in December 1944. Good heroes that the community and the veteran groups would love to honor them by naming a hero square after them. So I appreciate your support on this matter.
Thank you, Councilor LaMattina. Councilor Flaherty. No. Councilor Flaherty, did you want to speak?
Just please add my name, Mr. President.
Okay.
If
Please
that's
add
possible.
Councilor Flaherty's name.
3.
Councilor Murphy, did you want to speak? Okay. So, Councilor Murphy and Councilor LaMattina move suspension of the rules and adoption of 1331. All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1331 has been adopted. Thank you. Councilor LaMattina moves suspension of the rules and adoption of docket 1338. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1338 has been adopted. And Councilor LaMattina moves that docket 1339 suspend the rules and adopt docket 1339. All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1339 has been adopted. Thank you.
Docket number 1332. Councilor O'Malley offered the following order for a hearing on food insecurity in Boston.
Councilor O'Malley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. There seems to be a plethora of news reports and media accounts detailing hunger lately, and what has been most striking to me is how the face of hunger has changed. For many of us, it used to be the haunting image of the child with a distended belly in a faraway country such as Bangladesh or Ethiopia or India that represented hunger. While that still sadly exists, hunger can also be characterized as the child who eats only sugary food and white bread and doesn't have access to healthy or healthful offerings. And while it may seem counterintuitive, a hungry child can be an overweight or even an obese child. An increasing number of people in our country, in our state, and in our city do not know where their next meal is coming from. The term food insecurity, or the lack of a consistent access to adequate food, has entered our national lexicon during the past decade. And lately we are hearing a newer term, more frequently what is known as SUV poor, people who appear to be financially stable but are actually struggling to get by. Wage increases, especially in low-wage jobs, have not kept pace with the cost of living. Full-time workers cannot necessarily cover their basic needs: housing, health care, transportation, and food. The U.S. Department of Agriculture reports that nearly 49 million Americans are facing hunger. 16 million of them are children. According to Project Bread, more than 700,000 people in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, that's more than the population of the great city of Boston, are affected by food insecurity. Boston is home to numerous organizations that are fighting hunger every day: the Greater Boston Food Bank, ABCD, and Project Bread, just to name 3. Indeed, the city's own Office of Food Initiatives has been working towards this goal as well. Earlier today, we discussed the Bounty Bucks. It came up in one of the earlier communications from the mayor. And this is a program that our Director of Food, Edith Murnane, who's with us today, a friend and a neighbor of mine, has worked tirelessly for. And this is an innovative way to get access to farmers markets and healthful meals to more people, particularly lower income folks. Additionally, the Boston Public Schools are now offering free lunch to all students. And this is something that Councilor Presley and Councilor Jackson I know have been working on. And I commend them for that. And while I just named several examples of what we are doing in Boston, other cities are really stepping up to tackle this issue with great innovative ideas. Some school systems offer food for kids to take home before a school break, before school vacation, or even summer vacation. Others will use a school cafeteria as a drop-in center during those non-school days. Other cities have employed mobile food pantries. Others are working with community gardens and teaching and educating folks how to grow healthy and accessible food. Nonprofits particularly have stepped up in a very large way here in Boston and around the country in facilitating new and creative solutions to address food insecurity. What is most remarkable is that many of these programs exist for little or no cost to the taxpayer. But the problem is still persisting and it is still growing. This summer, National Geographic magazine had a sobering article entitled "The Face of New Hunger," with the subtitle, "Why Are People Malnourished in the Richest Country in the World?" The problem is not that we do not have enough food. What we have is a distribution problem. I recently met with representatives of Lovin' Spoonfuls, which is a Boston-based nonprofit. I know they've met with many of you. And what they do is they distribute healthy, perishable food that would otherwise wind up in a dumpster to those that need it. A brief example of their business model would be that they'd work with a supermarket that might have those bags of salad that expire after a week or 8 or 9 days. And after, when they're 2 days away from the expiration, they're no longer sold. So Lovin' Spoonfuls will pick them up. The business that donates them will get a tax write-off, and they'll then be distributed to a lower-income person that wouldn't necessarily have access to that food. Since 2010, Lovin' Spoonfuls has recovered and redistributed more than 1.5 million pounds of food, and that's just in Greater Boston. Today I'm calling for a hearing on food insecurity in Boston. We need to examine the extent of the problem in our city and discuss the city's role in addressing it. We also need to better utilize the roles of these nonprofits, study from other cities, enhance on the successes that Edith Murnane and the city of Boston are doing already, and perhaps better facilitate how these programs can have a larger reach. Boston can be a leader in this, and we should be a leader in this. We have the institutional support. We have the most incredible nonprofits. We have the will. Let's find the way. Thank you very much. And Mr. President, I would just ask if this could be referred to the Committee on Women and Healthy Communities. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you for your in-depth presentation on the matter. Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Presley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to commend the maker for his leadership on this in the same way that I commended Councilor Wu for taking on and addressing the issue of homelessness, not just in the wake of winter months. I think it's important that this be an issue that is not only addressed in the minds of people during the holiday season, which is so often the case. What used to be a minority is, in fact, a growing majority. And there are so many families that are not only suffering in silence because of food insecurity issues, but also living with great shame. It's a very painful thing for a parent to not be able to provide food for their child. And so I commend the maker for his leadership in this space. I wish to have my name added, and will certainly expedite the scheduling of a hearing.
Thank you, Councilor Presley. Madam Clerk, please add Councilor Presley's name, Councilor Zakim's name, Councilor Yancey's name, Councilor Wu's name. Councilor McCarthy, Councilor Murphy, Councilor LaMartina, Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Siomo, Councilor Baker, and please add my name. Councilor Yancey, do you wish to speak? Okay. Docket 1332 is assigned to the Committee on Healthy Women, Families, and Community. Madam Clerk?
Docket number 1333, Councilor Wu offer the following order for hearing regarding language access policies in the City of Boston.
Chair recognizes Councilor Wu on docket 1333.
Very familiar with the strength and vitality of immigrant communities in all of our districts, both in terms of the contributions they make to the city, but also the sheer numbers that are growing in Boston. And we heard earlier from our chairman of Ways and Means on some of the incredible work that the Mayor's Office of New Bostonians is doing, partnering with the Bar Foundation, creating a citywide envisioning plan for immigrant communities. This hearing order focuses specifically on language access policy for those who are limited English proficient, and it is the brainchild, I'm very proud to say, of our summer fellow from the Ward Fellowship Program from Boston Latin School, Helen Claire Scarrett, who took the lead in doing all the research and drafting. She has pointed out that many other cities have ordinances in place and other programs that guarantee language access, whether interpretation or translation. There may be language access coalitions in place, and she has been working very closely with Alejandra Sanquien, Director of the Mayor's Office of New Bostonians, and James, our new council liaison. So thank you to both of you and to the administration for supporting her efforts and really focusing on language access in particular for city agencies. We deal with residents on any number of issues every day. We're often the first point of contact, and this hearing order is just to bring the conversation up about how every department should be an access point, and where we need to make sure that we are particularly mindful of translated documents or having someone there in person who can help. So you can read the hearing order. It mentions a number of different statistics, 84 different languages in the Boston Public Schools alone. So clearly a pressing issue, and cities making great strides and doing great work already, and looking forward to continuing to partner and make sure that we are keeping this in the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Wu. Would you please add my name to that docket? And Councilor Zakin, Councilor Yancey, Councilor Presley, Councilor O'Malley, Councilor Murphy, Councilor McCarthy, Councilor LaMattina, Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Siomo. And docket 1333 is assigned to the Committee on City Neighborhood Services and Veterans Affairs. Madam Clerk.
Docket number 1334, Councilor Jackson offer the following order for hearing to discuss displacement, community stability, and neighborhood preservation.
The chair recognizes Councilor Jackson on docket 1334.
To discuss an issue that is near and dear and actually relevant and present in every single neighborhood in the city of Boston. The topic of gentrification actually gets tossed around in specific neighborhoods in the city of Boston, but in all honesty, there are people being displaced all over the city of Boston based on the upward pressures that we see, be it from Roxbury, Dorchester, to South Boston, to East Boston. I know specific neighborhoods use that particular term, but in all honesty, the reality is something that's actually happening in every part of the city of Boston. With that said, we know that more than half of Boston residents who are able to obtain housing are rent burdened, paying more than 30% of their household gross income on housing, and thus sacrificing health care, healthy food, and transportation. The other thing that we know is that on the other side of this equation is that there are some exploitative practices that are happening relative to real estate companies and people who are coming in and actually purchasing property. I want to commend my friend and partner in government, Councilor Josh Zakum, for calling out a particular landowner who was doing wrong by young people in the community. Today, I call out a particular landowner who is taking advantage of people in my neighborhood and neighborhoods across the city of Boston, a company called City Realty. This is a company that I have documented information that has actually raised the rent of a family who has a disabled child from $1,600 to $3,200. This is a company that has bought 2 units in a three-unit building that were condos, and raised the condo fee so high that they actually were able to put a lien on the one resident who was left, even though those other 2 units were foreclosed. It is our job as a council to step forward and to really think about how we build communities. We have a bunch of stuff that comes before us, ladies and gentlemen, that has to do with buildings and structures. We're not talking about buildings and structures. What we're talking about is families and communities. And it is incumbent upon our body to protect the families in the city of Boston, to protect the people who are long-term residents of the city of Boston, and to make sure that these neighborhoods are able to stay together. And I was recently in South Boston and saw, and we saw this during our redistricting, thousands upon thousands of market rate, which means luxury housing units in that area, pushing families and people out. We have to be the defenders of our city. We have to be the defenders of our community against folks who would take advantage of people who are vulnerable, who would turn a quick profit on people who are vulnerable and will not do the right thing by folks. This looks at neighborhood preservation, how we stabilize our communities, and how we put together a comprehensive citywide plan to stabilize neighborhoods and communities in the city of Boston. I look forward to an expedited hearing. And Mr. President, the stories that I heard in the meeting that I had with City Life Vida Urbana actually made me want to cry. People who were literally robbed of their homes and continue to be exploited. We must do something, and we have the power, and also I believe we have the mandate as a city council to step forward and to protect those folks who have been taken advantage of. Thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to an expedited hearing, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Jackson. Councilor Presley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to commend the maker and ask to have my name added. I was a participant in that same meeting, and all of us have heard very sobering and painful stories, and we thank those who have come forward and had the courage to share their stories of no-fault evictions, of egregious foreclosures, the ways in which it has demoralized individuals, destabilized families and our communities. I want to thank advocates like City Life and Right to the City, because we are certainly sending a very damning message as to who deserves to live in this city, who has a right to make a home and to call Boston their home. So I want to commend the advocates. They've done their part. As a city and as a government, now is time for us to do our part. And I also want to thank Councilor Jackson in particular for citing City Realty, because very often problems that are this gargantuan and this awesome in scope and affecting our entire city, as legislators and as policymakers, we often don't know where to direct our ire. So I, for one, am very grateful that I know exactly where to direct my ire and who to call out when we're talking about exploitive and abusive practices. So thank you for naming City Realty. And so again, I commend the maker for his leadership. I thank the advocates for the role and their advocacy every single day on behalf of families who have been destabilized and demoralized. And I look forward to an expedited hearing.
Thank you, Councilor Presley. Councilor Zakim.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank my good colleague, Councilor Jackson, for bringing forward this hearing order and for his support on the previous hearings I held on similar issues in some of our other neighborhoods, student neighborhoods in the city of Boston. I think it's incredibly important and appropriate for the Boston City Council to make sure that our neighborhoods provide opportunities for everyone, that families, young people, senior citizens have places to live and are not pushed out of the neighborhoods that they've helped build. As someone who began my career at Greater Boston Legal Services in foreclosure prevention and home loan modifications, I've seen firsthand the impact that predatory investors, predatory lenders can have on families throughout Boston, throughout the Greater Boston area. So I think this is an incredibly timely and important matter for the council to discuss. I look forward to the hearing, and please add my name, and I thank Councilor Jackson for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Councilor Zakim. Please add Councilor Presley's name, Councilor Zakim's name, Councilor Wu's name, Councilor O'Malley, Councilor Murphy, Councilor McCarthy, Councilor LaMattina, Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Siomo, and please add my name, Councilor Yancey.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I, too, would like to commend our good colleague from Roxbury, Councilor Jackson, and to reemphasize that this is really part of a great tradition of this body. We've had many debates and discussions going back to the early 80s about the merits of rent control. And we know that unfettered corporate greed can devastate not only individuals and families, but entire communities. So I think it's altogether appropriate that the Boston City Council once again step forward and answers the question, who will advocate for the people? Who will assert the human right of everyone to have a roof over their family's head? And I believe that, again, it's altogether appropriate that those of us, and you reminded me earlier, Mr. President, that we are in fact elected, but we're elected to serve the people. Not ourselves, we're elected to serve the people. And when we find hundreds and thousands of families living in very desperate situations, check to check, just for the ability to pay the mortgage or pay the rent, then something's wrong in our society. And shame on us if we're silent while so many people are forced into unnecessary misery because they simply cannot afford housing because of the corporate greed. So I ask that my name be added, and I commend the entire body for taking up the challenge once again. We faced it with the various mortgage scams that have plagued our communities. We've faced it in terms of the issue just discussed about gentrification, about the fact that we have people in the city of Boston on the verge of starving because of inadequate food. So I, again, commend our good colleague and ask that my name be added. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Yancey. Madam Clerk, please add Councilor Yancey's name. Docket 1334 is assigned to the Committee on Housing. Madam Clerk, 1335.
Councilor Jackson offered the following order for hearing to evaluate the Boston Public Schools Perkins Grant for the prior fiscal year.
Councilor Jackson.
Years.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I rise to speak about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, one that has been smeared in one of our local newspapers recently, and I want to talk about Madison Park Vocational Technical High School. This is a school that's technically a level 3 school, where over 30 other schools in the city of Boston actually are in that category. It is a school that is in need of help. It's a school in need of turnaround. It's a school that actually has a leader right now. And I will note that every single turnaround school in the city of Boston has been given at least 3 years to turn itself around. This is a school that has been plagued by mismanagement, underperformance, and low graduation rates for over 20 years. And as a body who has financial responsibility for the city of Boston, I think it's incumbent upon us to open the books, to thrust open the books and actually look at where Chapter 74 dollars, aka Perkins funds, actually have come from, and then also have been used in vocational and technical education in the city of Boston. Vocational technical education in the city of Boston, to me, is one of the most important pushes that we can make. The Boston building trades have an average age of about 55, 56 years old. We know that we have a generation who will be retiring, and we need to have a generation of young people who have the skills for and are career ready for 21st century careers, but also for some 19th century careers relative to the ability to build up the city. We know that we need those opportunities right here. And as many of you know, we have over $40 million of building that's approved in our city. We need to be teaching our young people to have that opportunity. In places like Worcester, where I've visited, they have a whole printing department in Worcester, and I compliments to Councilor Baker for his experience in that space. In in the Boston, in the Worcester Public Schools, there's a zero line item for printing because the young people in that school actually do all of the printing for the whole school department in Worcester. We need to find out and do an analysis, and hopefully this ends up in the post-audit committee, where we actually look at the money trail, not only the expenditures on capital, but also where these dollars are connected to people. We need to make sure that we have the right human capital in these places to make sure that we are building up our city and that we have the next generation of leaders in all fields. I know we want everyone, there's a bunch of folks who want everyone to be college ready. Well, you know what? Not everyone is actually going to head to college. And I know my plumber makes more than I do. And I know that we need to have more of the folks who are in these schools prepared to be able to enter career ready into the workforce. This hearing will allow us to do a look back in terms of where the dollars and cents, actually whether the dollars make sense in terms of where they've been placed. I think it's high time that we do that, and this is a critical factor in making sure that we support Madison Park Vocational Technical High School, the turnaround that must occur there. And I will also note, and I'm sorry for being long-winded, Mr. President, it is a shame, and the Boston Public Schools should be ashamed of themselves to have 62 open positions at one school 2 weeks out. They should be absolutely ashamed. And it's wrong. It does not set the school up to succeed. It doesn't give the school leader an opportunity to build a team. And as they came to us for $6 or $7 million to change their hiring, to offer folks jobs in March, April, and May, we stand here again, yet again, in August, without all of the positions being filled. And we've been light on this. It's wrong that they've done that. And today, this would allow us to look at where those dollars go. But I have to point the finger at the Boston Public Schools for I believe, being negligent in their hiring practices relative to the 62 open positions that are currently in place right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Jackson. Councilor Yancey.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I simply rise to thank the chair of the Education Committee for his diligence. He happens to be correct. The situation at Madison is really at a crisis level. And it does raise a lot of questions concerning vocational education in the city of Boston, and are we truly providing our children with the opportunity for success, or are we perpetuating a cycle of failure, not because of inability of the students, but the inability of this system to appropriately provide educational opportunities for all of our children in many professions? Every member of this body is very concerned about education. And I don't understand why a few weeks before the opening of schools we have so many vacancies at our only voc ed school. I don't understand it. I know many years ago the people of Boston agreed with the mayor that we should not have an elected school committee. We gave up a very important democratic right to elect our school committee. And Boston is the only city of the 361 cities and towns in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts where we do not have the ability to elect our school committee members. We gave that up in exchange for improvement in our educational system. So again, it begs the question, what's really going on? I know it's a complex and difficult issue. I commend the chair of the Education Committee for offering this and ask that my name be added. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Yancey. Please add Councilor Yancey's name, Councilor O'Malley's name, Councilor McCarthy's name, Councilor Presley's name, Okay. Councilor Wu's name, Councilor Zakim's name, Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Baker, and please add my name. Councilor Presley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too rise to commend the Chair of Education on his leadership and to ask to have my name added. You know, we have all given verbal support to the need for us to have a premier voc ed school, but support is a verb. And so what are we going to do to make sure that that happens? It's going to require a formidable financial investment. The school is failing because we have failed these kids. I'm tired of the school being referred to as a dumping ground. These kids are hearing and listening everything that we're saying. They're weeks away from entering a building. The school is failing. The kids are failing because we have failed them. There have been so many starts and stops in this process, so many breaches of contracts that were not honored. If the school is being set up to fail, the students are being set up to fail. Enough is enough. So I commend the maker for this hearing order. And, you know, I'm just looking for some accountability here and something dramatic. Dramatic and decisive has got to happen here. And whatever we say we're going to do, we need to see that through in a very real and meaningful way. Because the families of Madison Park and those students deserve nothing less. This has gone on for far too long. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Presley. Docket 1335 is assigned to the Committee on Post Audit and Oversight. Madam Clerk, 1336.
Thank you, Mr. President. Docket number 1336, Councilor Jackson offered the following resolutions that the Boston City Council calls on the Boston School Committee to delay a vote on the proposal for the new constructed schools to be a charter school until further consideration of this matter.
Councilor Jackson, you have the floor.
I move to substitute the language, Mr. President. I'd like them to pass it out, sir.
Sure. Just a recess real quickly.
I think he wants it to be... No, I think, is this still...
Councilor Jackson, you have the floor.
Mr. President, I would like to substitute the language in the resolution as an order.
Is there a second for that? Okay. Are there any objections? So that matter has been substituted from being a resolution to an order. Councilor Jackson, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, again, I want to give a great deal of love to Councilor Siomo.
You heard it here.
for the great budget process, and I have grown to, again, love him, but also respect him even more for the heavy lifting that he does relative to that process. Every single night, doing the work of the people, looking over a $2.7 billion budget, making sure that all of those dollars go into the proper place. He did a great job. Our body voted for Dearborn, a Dearborn K through 12 STEM academy. That's what was put forward, and in fact, and thank you, Mr. President, you actually expedited our vote so that we could actually meet the requirements of the Mass School Building Authority, so that we could actually get the $36 million that is coming to us. We're getting what we deserve relative to those dollars. And to help folks understand, the School Building Authority takes 1 cent out of every single sales tax dollar, and that's where those dollars come from. Over the past 20 years, we have not leveraged the Mass School Building Authority. Councilor Yancey speaks regularly about a school in his district, but in all honesty, there are schools all over the Commonwealth that have been rebuilt, and communities where every single school has been rebuilt. What happened to the Dearborn is actually, to me, something that the council, that actually disrespects the council. It disrespects our authority, and actually was not transparent. There is no way that 3 weeks after we vote on a budget, that the folks over at the school department, the superintendent, and the folks at Court Street had no idea that they were going to put forward an in-district charter. Understand what an in-district charter does. An in-district charter, and I went to a meeting last night, and folks tried to sell us on, we need to go to the state and get them to change the rules and allow charter schools to be made neighborhood schools. We're not going to the state to do that, because we're not going to allow the Dearborn to be taken away and be made anything but a district school. An in-district charter school would mean for the people in that neighborhood that you could possibly stand the 3 years of construction, well, actually, taking down the building, putting up the building, and your child right across the street would have no preference in going to that school. The community stood up, Dearborn stood up, Roxbury Presbyterian stood up, Greater Boston Interfaith Organization. Everybody was in lockstep when it came to this one particular issue. The school department did not do its job in engaging the community. We had the first large community meeting with everybody at the table, and mind you, ladies and gentlemen, it's the middle of the summer. We're making a decision when parents aren't even around, when the young people that we're actually going to be making a change to their schedule and their building, when they're not even able to be present. This is a failure by the Boston Public Schools, and it is actually, to me, something that we need to look at based on the vote that we all took here. And again, this is one of the unanimous parts of the vote. We all unanimously supported this, as well as the capital budget, and we all, at that time, were under the, not assumption, but fact that this was going to be a district school. We cannot sit idly by and allow for a school, $72 million, $36 million of which is ours, to be snatched out from the young people in the city of Boston who truly deserve it. A city where over 40% of the young people are ELL, which means their parents don't actually speak English generally, and they may not be able to fill out the extensive form that you need to get into a charter school. All of that said, Mr. President, I'm going to be demanding that all of the members, the superintendent, I would like the members of the school committee to come, and any others, Mitchell Chester, all of those folks from DESE, to come and sit with our body to help us understand how they came to that conclusion, to help us understand how 3 weeks before you allowed our body to take a vote on something like this without giving us full disclosure. That is not okay. It's not okay for this body. It's not okay for the young people of the city of Boston, and it's not okay for Roxbury, where this school is, will be, and will be open to the young people in that area. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Mr. President, and I look forward to an expedited hearing so we can get answers here in the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Jackson, and no more 2 weeks vacation. You're on a roll here. Please add my name to that matter. Add Councilor Siomo's, Councilor Flaherty's, Councilor Baker's, Councilor LaMartina, Councilor McCarthy, Councilor Presley, Councilor Wu, Councilor Zakem, Councilor Yancey. And at this time, I'd like to give the floor to Councilor Murphy.
Mr. President, I don't think I've ever heard the Chair of Education as eloquent as I just heard him at this point in time. And I think we were all caught by surprise in the 2 weeks that we haven't met by the announcement, the surprise announcement, that the Dearborn School, something many of us have been working on since 2009, and something we voted for twice during the capital budget under Councilor Siomo's leadership just 6-8 weeks ago, $72 million. And at the time we were told we could expect a reimbursement of about 70% of that. So $22 million in Boston money at the very least, and $72 million to go into something that we've been working on for an underperforming school to give a STEM education, and have the rug pulled out from under us after the fact. I put down a not a late file, but substitute language on the floor of everybody's desk, which is very similar to Councilor Jackson's language. The difference was, and he's already accepted it, that I was looking to get a hearing. Because when we send resolutions over to the school department, they just don't get treated like a hearing here. And I felt that this is one of those times where we can be appropriately outraged as the appropriating authority for the entire City of Boston budget. That includes the schools. And I believe we were misled, intentionally misled, when we voted for that $72 million. So as one member here and someone who's been around for a while, it just can't go on. A resolution isn't strong enough, and now we've got a hearing, and that's what I wanted. So I will second Councilor Jackson's language, withdraw my own language, which I was prepared to offer, and I like the way that he's going to bring the entire school committee in here. They should come in here. And under our subpoena power, we know they can come in here. So let's get them in here, and let's read them the facts of life before they think they can get away with this bait and switch every year on us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's not a heck of a lot that I can add that hasn't been said so eloquently by the two previous speakers, other than this. You know, I've been on this body 4 years now, and this ain't my first rodeo with a situation like this. It was my second day in office when the end of 2010 with the initial school closures, with the Agassiz being added to that. The following year, it was other changes, including moving the Mission Hill K-8 from Mission Hill to Jamaica Plain, the old Agassiz building, which I supported in large part because it would also facilitate the Margarita Munoz Academy, which we later found out would not necessarily stay there. We saw it as recently as several months ago with the school transportation change, and now this. This isn't a mistake. This isn't an oversight. This is a deliberate way to mislead this body, and all that does is fuel cynicism that so many parents, so many teachers, so many students have of the Boston Public Schools. It's not right. We have our job, the biggest, the most important role, function that we have is voting for the budget, is voting for a huge, large, multi-million-dollar allocation such as this. We did it in good faith, and we were misled. So I just wanted to rise to thank my friend, my colleague from District 7, as well as my at-large colleague, for their leadership on this, ask that my name be added, and look forward to a prompt hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Yancey.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name has already been added to this order. I rise because I see a very dangerous trend, partly articulated by the previous speaker, the colleague from District 6. We have the potential in Boston. We have the best school system in the nation. We know we have all the basic ingredients in this town to make it happen. But for some reason, over recent decades, really, we seem to be prone to disinvesting in our schools. And we have a number of schools that have, in fact, been wrenched away from us. I mean, in my district, you have the Holland School and you have the Marshall School that's now not operated by the district. That doesn't have to happen. We have the talent to ensure that all of our children are afforded a high-quality education. Something's holding us back, and it's my hope that as a result of this action and many others that this body takes, working in partnership with the Walsh administration, that we can swing the pendulum in the other direction, where we accept responsibility for education in the city of Boston, that we no longer allow the type of disinvestment that we've seen far too often within our city. So again, I look forward to the hearing. I thank Councilors Murphy and especially Councilor Jackson for their leadership on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Yancey. Docket 1336 will be placed in the Committee on Education.
Docket number 1337, Councilor Lamartine offers the following order for hearing regarding for-profit lodging and personal residences.
Chair recognizes Councilor Lamartine on docket 1337.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you're aware, as most of you are aware, that there are several companies now that recently begun operations to enable property owners to market beds, rooms, entire houses, even couches, for overnight rentals in residential areas throughout the city of Boston. Some of the largest companies in this industry include Airbnb, Flipkey, HomeAway, and Craigslist, just to name a few. These companies provide an option for vacationers and tourists to rent these units in lieu of hotel rooms, and the owner can charge whatever they would like. In most cases, though, they charge much less than hotels rooms. And it's convenient because units can be booked online and from an app on your mobile phone. In 2008, Airborne operated only in the United States. And today, it operates in 33,000 cities and 192 countries. And I bet you all think it sounds cool because it's on an app. And I also thought it was until I started receiving complaints from my constituents in regards to people coming in and out of houses. So this is not only an issue in Boston. This is an issue throughout the United States. City all over the United States are dealing with these issues. Countries are dealing with these issues. So the main concern, like I said earlier, it was people coming in and out of the buildings. They have no idea who they are. Some cases, there's some loud parties, some late-night gatherings taking place. There's issue of parking in neighborhoods, trash. Yesterday morning, Councilor Zakin and myself and Councilor Linehan's office we had our first meeting again on the problem property task force in our neighborhoods to deal with the large number of students living in our neighborhoods and the problems and issues that they bring. And the many issues that we have with absentee landlords. All of us, we all have issues with absentee landlords. We heard from Councilor Tito Jackson today talking about how do we stabilize our communities. I don't know about you, but I'd rather live in a stable neighborhood, in a transit neighborhood. I know my next door neighbors, Mr. Pastore on my left and Mr. Dupree on my right. People that I could depend on if there's an issue. They look out for me, I look out for them. But this is not happening when you're renting out your apartment to these short-term rentals. So I have a lot of concerns, When I looked into this, I just thought there was a few units. There's thousands right here in the city of Boston. So guess what? When they're renting these apartments out for, I don't know, a one-bedroom in East Boston, $700 a week for one bedroom. In the South End, I heard they're renting out a condo for $700 a night. So what happens to the affordable housing stock and the housing stock in our city? We're going to be losing more and more and more of our housing stock. I'm not dead against it. I think there's some areas that these Airbnb might work. Maybe in some of the commercial districts in our neighborhoods, they might work there. But I have concern in regards to the zoning issues. Most people in our neighborhoods, they live in residential neighborhoods, and we have zoning in place. Bed and breakfast, motels, hotels, those are conditional uses in a lot of our neighborhoods. So I'm concerned about some of the safety issues in the neighborhood. Some of these landlords are doing are absentee landlords. We have issues with absentee landlords. So do we know if they're up to code? Last night, one of my constituents sent me a picture of her next door house is one of those houses that they rent to Airbnb. Poor guy last night with his suitcase came to the house, and guess what? He couldn't get in. The key wasn't there. So I think that this is an issue that we need to really address. I have fears that we're going to lose a lot of our housing stock to these short-term rentals, particularly in neighborhoods that are close to downtown Boston. So all I want is to have a hearing. We should look at what other cities across the United States are doing. I know in New York City, they ban some of these. There's some houses that you rent the whole house. But it might work where the owner lives in the house and you rent the room or you rent the couch and you have control over it. So I think we need a hearing. I think we need to get ISD here. We need to get fire department, police department, and then we have to get these Airbnb, flip key, home away, so they can explain to us the process. I think that there's a lodging taxes, there's inspections that go all these motels and B&B that are illegal here in the city that they have to go through. So all I ask is for a hearing, and I hope some of my members here will participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor LaMattina. Councilor O'Malley?
Thank you. I think this is the most I've spoken in any meeting. I wanted to thank my colleague and friend from District 1. Tell a little story. Last November, after our election, Catherine and I had the trip of a lifetime. We went to Paris for the week, and we stayed in the 6th arrondissement. I chose that because of my district being 6 and my tattoo being 6. And we rented an apartment through Airbnb, and it was a fantastic experience. Having said that, I also live in a condo, a brick building that has 10 units, so I have 9 neighbors, and would certainly have concerns if one of my neighbors were to start operating. So I think a hearing is something that I would certainly value. But again, I think the difference with this part of the innovation economy is this is something that can work, but I would certainly agree that there's opportunity for the council to play a role in answering some questions and perhaps working on some guidelines or clearing up some information that's out there. So thank you, Councilor LaMattina, for your leadership. Thank you.
Would you like to add your name to that, Councilor O'Malley?
That's okay.
You know?
Is he signing that?
Sorry. Councilor Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I also think this is something that we need to explore. Again, I just hope that a city that is teeming with 37 colleges and universities, and one of the hottest innovation economies in the nation, that we just take a very measured approach. As we look at Uber, Haystack, Airbnb, all of these apps and innovative companies, I think it's, if we're going to bring these companies here, if people are actually going to start these companies here, we have to figure out an environment that's complementary, that also deals with the issues that Councilor LaMartina noted, parties, the issues of public safety and issues of public nuisance. But I just stress that our regulatory environment must stay such that the innovation economy can grow and prosper here. And I look forward to the hearing and the findings in the hearing. Thank you very much for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Councilor Jackson.
I'd like to sign on also.
Okay, please add Councilor Jackson's name, Councilor Baker's name, Councilor Siomo's name, Councilor McCarthy's name, Councilor Yancey's name, Councilor Zakim's name. Please add my name and Councilor Murphy's name. I don't know how I missed you, Councilor Murphy. And please add Councilor Flaherty's name. Everybody who would like to be recognized and had their name added to this matter? Okay, good. Docket 1337 is assigned to the Committee on Economic Development, Planning, and Labor. Late file matters. There is one late file matter in the hands of the clerk, which in absence of objection will be added to today's agenda. Hearing no objection, the matter will be so added. Madam Clerk, would you read the matter?
From the Office of the Mayor, Martin J. Walsh, July 28, 2014, to the City Council. Dear Councilors, I return herewith undersigned and disapproved docket number 0760, an ordinance regarding residency preference for the Boston Police Department and the Boston Fire Department, passed by your honorable body on July 9, 2014. Residency for the City of Boston employees, particularly for our public safety officials, is of great importance to my administration. The benefits of having public safety officials who know the city streets, neighborhoods, and residents are immeasurable. Recognizing the good intentions of this piece of legislation, and in light of the Walsh administration's commitment to take a comprehensive approach to fixing the discrepancies found in the numerous residency rules and requirements that have been enacted in the past, it is my intention to submit this language as part of my annual legislative package to the State House in January. By utilizing the home rule petition process, we can better protect this policy by being challenged in the future. I urge your body to not only accept my veto, but also to work with my administration on the legislation that I will file. Sincerely, Martin J. Walsh, Mayor of Boston.
The first late file matter will be placed on file. Anybody wishing to remove a matter from the green sheets may do so at this time. Councilor Flaherty, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to pull docket 1175 from the Committee on Government Operations and Ordinance establishing a Boston Trust Act. And if I could ask the clerk if she could be so kind to poll the Committee on Government Operations.
Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Councilor Jackson. Councilor Jackson, yes, and Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor LaMartina. Yes. Councilor LaMartina, yes. Councilor McCarthy. Yes. Councilor McCarthy, yes. Councilor O'Malley. Yes. Councilor O'Malley, yes. Councilor Presley. Councilor Presley, yes. And Councilor Wu. Councilor Wu. Unanimous on Committee on Government Operations.
Councilor Flaherty.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Mr. President. The hearing we had on this matter was held on July 31st. Very informative and well attended by our colleagues, and also we heard from the Boston Police Department. We heard from the Office of New Bostonians, many different advocacy groups, immigration lawyers who practice in district and superior court, and Boston residents who feel strongly for the need to pass this ordinance without the exemptions. And very compelling and articulate argument was made by Andre De Castillo, a resident of Council Lamatina's district in East Boston. Therefore, I want to take this opportunity to clarify the exemptions previously outlined in Section 2B as what I believe to be onerous, unnecessary, and are already taken into account by presiding judges, particularly around prior criminal history, history of defaults, use of aliases, as well as one's, which is most important, is one's likelihood to reappear to answer the charges. And so feeling that there are enough safeguards there to protect the public, and also if you get a real bad guy and ICE really wants you, they're going to come and get you and they'll have a warrant. So with that, I am recommending docket 1175 pass in a new draft, but want to defer to the lead sponsor, City Councilor Josh Acom, for his thoughts and comments. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Chairman Flaherty. Prior to Councilor Acom's comments, I would like to ask the clerk to read the matter into the record.
On page 6 of the green sheets, in the Committee of Government Operations, docket number 1175, sponsored by Councilor Acom, an ordinance establishing a Boston Trust Act. This was referred to the committee on July 9th, 2014, a hearing on July 31st, 2014.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilor Acom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Chairman Flaherty for his hard work on this ordinance. We've spent quite a bit of time working on this, along with Mayor Walsh, his team with the Office of New Bostonians, and other folks in the administration, without whose help we wouldn't have gotten this far. Councilors Jackson and LaMattina have also been incredibly supportive and helpful from the day this ordinance was introduced, and Christine and central staff was also incredibly helpful in getting us to these revisions, which all of my colleagues have in front of them now. As Councilor Flaherty noted, these revisions take out some of these so-called exceptions that during the hearing, which was quite well attended, and not a single voice spoke against the Trust Act, but every single person who spoke in favor of removing these exceptions. Because the goal of the Trust Act, by its title, is to restore trust within our immigrant communities and encourage cooperation with local law enforcement and the Boston Police Department, it's important that the bill we pass today furthers those goals by making sure that folks know, regardless of their immigration status, that they are safe coming to the Boston Police Department as victims of crime, as witnesses of crime, as Councilor LaMattina noted eloquently on this floor and in the hearing, that the folks in his district, and I think probably in all of our districts and across the city, have been reluctant to step forward as witnesses or victims because of fear that their immigration status could lead to deportation, because of a fear that the Boston Police Department is cooperating or acting as an arm of immigration and customs enforcement. In recent months across this country, federal courts have been ruling that this program itself is unconstitutional. Those rulings haven't yet come to Massachusetts, but we heard from several attorneys from the ACLU, from those in private practice at the hearing, that there were serious constitutional concerns and resulting financial liability for government entities, law enforcement agencies that were abiding by this program. Sheriff's departments in other areas of the country and nearby, Rhode Island being the closest, have been paying significant penalties. Beyond that, the federal government offers no reimbursement for any cost incurred by a city government, by the city police department in enforcing these civil detainer requests. So I think on the issues of justice, on the issue of constitutionality, on the issues of our duty, we've heard over and over again today, our duty as a guardian of the public fiscal responsibility, we need to make sure that we pass this bill to restore trust in our communities, to make sure that the city of Boston is not paying for the enforcement of federal immigration laws. That's a job for the federal government. And to make sure we are sending a clear message to immigrant communities in Boston that it is safe to call the Boston Police Department. It is safe to be a witness against the crime. It is safe to report when you're a victim of a crime, whether that's domestic violence, whether that's a sexual assault, whether that's something on the street. Folks need to be comfortable going to the police and talking about that. Beyond those benefits, there have been no negative public safety issues raised by this. We worked closely. We had representatives from BPD at the hearing, working with the mayor's office and all of the city departments with an interest in this. We've been assured that they're comfortable with this language. Mayor Walsh plans to sign this bill in the new draft, and I urge my colleagues to support this. I think it's important for Boston to continue to be a leader on civil rights issues, on making sure that our police department is being abiding by the Constitution every step of the way, that we have strong defenses and protections for city finances in this field. So thank you, Mr. President. Thank my colleagues for the time. I know it's been a bit of a long meeting, so I'll stop here, but I do urge passage. I think it's an incredibly important bill for the city of Boston. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Zakhem. Councilor Jackson.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I rise to compliment the great work of Councilor Zakhem. This is one of my proudest days on the council. As a council, we work to include rather than exclude people. We work to protect people. And in this body, I just want to note that no man or woman can be illegal. No human can be illegal.
Please refrain from applause.
We have some folks in our community who unfortunately are undocumented, but they, regardless of their hue, are still human, and we should treat them as such. And this piece of legislation is probably the most literal piece of legislation that we will ever pass. It is to show the people who have sadly been in the shadows that they should have and can have trust in the people who are there to protect and serve them. What we've seen in our Commonwealth several times over in the past several years, we've seen Ponzi schemes that were actually directed at immigrant communities where people were there to actually exploit them based on actually being an immigrant. And we know in our city that there are people who've been robbed. There's women who have been sexually assaulted, and people who have been hurt and harmed based on their status. They didn't pick up the phone to ask for help. That, to me, doesn't sound like a secure community. What that means is our community is actually less secure. The notion of secure communities is one of those great government programs where they name it something that sounds really good that no one can agree upon, but it's actually something really, really bad. It's something that destabilizes our community. This is an opportunity, and again, under Councilor Zakhem's leadership, under the great work and heavy lifting of Councilor Flaherty, and under your leadership as the president, and with the work of our new mayor, Martin J. Walsh, we are further extending our arms as that city on a hill to welcome any and everyone who wants to come here. And it's a great place to be. And it's going to be an even greater place to be after we pass this, because we are ensuring that we will protect and serve every single member of our community, regardless of whether they have a document, a paper that says that they are a member of our community. You are a member of our community just by being here. And we love you and we thank you for that. And again, this is great legislation. It's timely legislation. And again, Boston actually leads. There's a bunch of other folks who passed this, and they passed it with all of those exceptions. We are exceptional because we have removed the exceptions. Thank you very much.
Please, again, I'll ask you not to applaud or scream. It's inappropriate here at a city council meeting. I truly understand the enthusiasm and the importance, and also the fine remarks from my colleagues. But if you would refrain from applause, it would be greatly appreciated. Councilor LaMattina.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will be brief. First, I want to commend the maker, Councilor Zakhem, for this ordinance, and Councilor Flaherty for the hearing, and to all my colleagues that attended this very, very important hearing that we had here. This is very important for my neighborhood in East Boston, where we have one of the largest immigrant neighborhoods in the city. People in my neighborhood will not live in fear when we pass this, because today they live in fear. When we learned at that hearing, folks are getting deported, a lot of them from my neighborhood. Number one and number two reasons: driving without a license, possession of marijuana, number one and two. In the meantime, my poor residents that live there, some of them are getting robbed, they're getting assaulted, they're getting beat, and they're getting raped, and they don't report it because they're scared of the police, they're scared to get deported. This is a big step for my community, this is a big step for Boston, and I urge all my colleagues to vote and support this. Thank you.
Councilor Wu.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to rise and add my voice to the chorus in terms of expressing my enthusiasm for this ordinance. In many ways, I also wanted to underscore that I think the way that the process has worked is really the embodiment of how legislation should happen, with strong leadership from Councilor Zakhem and many colleagues on the council, partnership from day one from Mayor Walsh and the administration, and such an incredibly strong and diverse coalition of activists that worked with the council to edit the language and make sure that we are putting forth the best possible version. So I'm proud to stand behind this version, which includes strong protections without exception, and really recognize that our immigrant residents and our communities throughout Boston will now feel that they are truly included and welcome, and Boston is once again taking a leadership role in this space.
Thank you, Councilor Wu. Councilor Presley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to echo the sentiments that my colleagues already stated, and also commend the mayor for his leadership and support on this, Councilor Zakhem for his due diligence throughout this process, and Councilor Flaherty for a very robust hearing, and for the many people who came on behalf of themselves and the many more who couldn't be there on behalf of themselves. Thank you for coming and sharing your stories. Always maintain that it's not statistics that move the needle, it is stories. And those stories were profound, and you had an impact, and that's why we stand here where we are today. Secure communities is sort of an oxymoron, because it didn't provide anyone with any sense of security. Many people were living in constant and looming fear, saddled with the anxiety of being racially profiled, of being detained, and the fear of deportation. As a city that celebrates the fact that we are 53% people of color, we herald our diversity, we showcase it in our parades, in our flag raisings, and in our festivals. It's great to celebrate diversity, but it's better that we honor the undocumented and immigrant community that contributes so much to our city, to our culture, to our communities, to our workforce, with just policy like this. Every Wednesday before the council meeting begins, we cite the Pledge of Allegiance. And that final line I always say twice: and justice for all. And justice for all. So for those who have been robbed or raped, know that you can seek refuge from law enforcement, and justice will be served. That for any crime or any violation that you endure, today we send a strong message that we will have an equity in our outrage, and there will be an equity in justice being served. In my estimation, this is especially timely given the unrest that we're seeing in our country right now, that has everything to do with stereotypes and biases and deficits of trust. We talk about there being breaches of trust, but it's not just our restoring trust for those who have experienced a deficit. There are those who have never known that trust of law enforcement. So this is one formidable step in the right direction to restore that. So again, I want to commend Mayor Walsh, the Office of New Bostonians, Councilor Zakhem, Councilor Flaherty, and I want to also acknowledge those that are in the room today from Centro Presente, from SEVA, from Nube. Thank you very much for your advocacy.
Thank you, Councilor Presley. Councilor Yancey.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, the Boston City Council has come a long way. There was a time when this topic would have been highly controversial. There was a time in the not-too-distant past even during my tenure on the city council, where even some of our colleagues were very, with all due respect, callous and insensitive to the rights of people because of where they came from or whether they're documented or not. This city council recognizes the humanity in everyone. And I would hasten to remind people who may not be in this room that the first immigrants to the United States of America were not documented. Pilgrims were not documented when they came to Massachusetts. Many parts of this country today were actually parts of Mexico. California was not a part of the United States of America when it was first founded. But yet the native people in those areas are being treated as almost non-human beings. In fact, we have others who were born and raised here. My family goes back in the city of Boston more than 150 years. My grandfather graduated from Harvard University in 1903. But yet there are certain people in this country whose lives are not valued as much as others, irregardless of what their immigrant status may have been. But I believe that in the effort to define who is important and who is not, who's valued and who's not valued, that we squander some precious resources. And with regards to the so-called Secure Communities Act, we squander our public safety services. But more important than that, we fail to avail ourselves of the rich diversity that we have in the city of Boston and the possibilities that people can come up with solutions to some very critical problems facing our society. So we should, as all of our colleagues have so well articulated today, embrace everyone who's in the city of Boston. As long as they're law-abiding, as long as they do no ill to others, whether they are documented or not. The criminals have to be dealt with whether they are so-called citizens or not. But we should not criminalize the fact of the birth of anyone in this city. Because again, I remind you once again, my colleagues, that the first immigrants to this country and to this city were not documented. And we should treat everyone with dignity and respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Yancey. The question now comes on acceptance and passage of docket 1175. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes. Out the vote, Madam. Oh. So we will doubt the vote, and you'll be voting on 1175 in a new draft. Madam Clerk.
Councilor Baker.
Yes.
Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Siomo. Councilor Siomo, yes. Councilor Flaherty. Yes. Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Jackson. Councilor Jackson, yes. Councilor LaMartina. Councilor LaMartina, C. Councilor Linehan.
Yes.
Councilor Linehan, yes. Councilor McCarthy. Yes. Councilor McCarthy, yes. Councilor Murphy. Yes. Councilor Murphy, yes. Councilor O'Malley. Yes. Councilor O'Malley, yes. Councilor Presley. Councilor Presley, yes. Councilor Wu. Councilor Wu, yes. Councilor Yancey. Yes. Councilor Yancey, yes. And Councilor Zachem. Councilor Zachem. Mr. President, we have a unanimous vote on docket number 1175.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Docket 1175 has been passed unanimously by the Boston City Council in a new draft. Thank you. There are 4 late matters in absence of objection will be added to the consent agenda. Seeing and hearing no objections, the matters are so added. The chair moves adoption of the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The consent agenda is adopted. Councilor Yancey, for what purpose do you rise?
Unanimous consent to make a brief statement, Mr. President?
All right, hearing no objection, you have the floor.
I rise to thank all of our colleagues who over the years have supported an annual event. It's called the Charles C. Yancey Annual Book Fair. I lend my name to the effort, but my staff and the community and others do all the work. I just want to encourage each of our colleagues to join us at the Reggie Lewis Center on August 30th, 12 to 3 p.m. Mr. President, this year has been particularly difficult with the book fair because we had a major problem on February 1st. We lost thousands of new books during the height of the cold season where pipes burst in our storage facility. We literally lost hundreds of thousands of books, but we have recovered, and we'll be distributing between 40 and 50,000 books on August 30th at the Reggie Lewis Center. I want to thank all of you for your support, material and otherwise. We could not do this without the support of the City Council, of the Mayor's Office, of many good corporate citizens, including many publishing houses. I know most, if not all of you, have participated in the book fair in the past. This is only our 28th year. We're still trying to get it right, Mr. President, but I encourage you and all your families to participate, and thank you for your support. August 30th, Reggie Lewis Center, 12 to 3. It's the Saturday after next. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Yancey. Councilor Presley, for what purpose do you rise?
Unanimous consent to make an announcement and to extend gratitude.
All right. Any objection to that gratitude being extended?
Okay.
You have the floor.
Okay, so first, just in the wake of the statements that we just made regarding the many contributions by our immigrant community, just a reminder that Caribbean Carnival season is upon us. We will be hosting the annual Caribbean Carnival Council kickoff breakfast this Friday at 10 o'clock, so I do hope you'll come by, even if only for a couple of moments. But in addition to that, I wanted to rise and just to extend some thanks. You know, who says that this body doesn't do real things? We are a relevant body. We are an impactful body. We are not a rubber stamp. We are a thoughtful body. And I feel like screaming from the highest mountain, can you hear me now? I wanted to rise, or hear us now, and thank you for the role that you played in liquor license reform. Last week was the bill signing of the Economic Development Bill by Governor Patrick that includes really what was the blueprint of a home rule petition that this body passed that was codified by Mayor Menino and tactically advanced in the state legislature. And it is unprecedented. Since the original cap was set, not since 2006 where there were an increase of 55 licenses. This is unprecedented. We'll now see an increase of 75 new licenses over a period of 3 years, 25, 25, and 25. 20 of those will be restricted to main streets, empowerment zones, neighborhoods that have traditionally been disenfranchised and marginalized, and the remaining licenses will be unrestricted. So this is a really long overdue step. We have city control. The mayor has full authority to appoint the licensing board. So anything that we look to pursue on this body in the interest of transparency and accountability, we will no longer have to work through the legislature. Those are things that I look to lead on and to have your partnership on that we can do from the jurisdiction and from this body, from this chamber. And so I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for your early support, for your thoughtful recommendations, so that we were able to put forth a really comprehensive home rule petition that ultimately is going to mean a greater equity and opportunity for every neighborhood to build community and to build wealth. And I look forward to celebrating at neighborhood restaurants in each and every one of your districts. And so the last thing that I would say, also just celebrating our doing real things, is Councilor Wu and I partnered on the Literary Cultural District, and that is also now official. So this chamber is leading, this city is leading. Because of all of you, we have now established the first literary arts district in the country. So, well done.
Thank you, Councilor Presley, and congratulations on that matter that you so hardly worked on, hard worked on. I just want to comment that there was a lot of work being done here today, and comprehensive, important matters that are facing our city, and it seems that we're in a time like that. So this will continue. I thank you for your cooperation, and thank you for allowing me to lead at this important time. I'd ask all guests and all members to rise as the council prepares to adjourn today's meeting in memory of the following individuals. One of our colleagues, a member of the Boston delegation, lost his mom most recently, Representative Aaron Michaelwitz. And that is on behalf of all of us. Councilor Baker, Sonny Elia, Christine Ryan, Eleanor Scannell. For Councilor Siomo, Anthony Toda Frasso, Carol Ann McIntyre. For the chair, Patrick Clifford and Leo Keeney. For Councilor McCarthy, Charles McCarthy. For Councilor Murphy, Helene Leary, Mark Mulhern. Councilor O'Malley, Christine Grillo. For Councilor Yancey, Leslie May Cox, Roger Haskins III, Eleanor Ross, Eleanor May Brown, Lucille D. Tart, Michael Brown of Ferguson, Missouri, Alice Marie Coachman, and Jerry D. Clifton. A moment of silence. Thank you. The chair moves that when the council adjourns today, it is done so in memory of the aforementioned individuals. It is scheduled to meet again on Wednesday, September 10th, 2014 at 12 o'clock noon. All in favor say aye. Of adjournment say aye. All opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The council is adjourned.